On paper, Battlefield 6 isn't just a success, it's a monster. It is by far the best-selling FPS of the last 3 years. It finally did the impossible and outsold Call of Duty. The marketing worked, the hype was real. The Call of Duty killer had finally arrived. But if you look at Steam charts right now, it paints a very ugly picture. It took a massive nosedive. Despite having a free-to-play battle royale attached to it, the player base dropped from 750,000 to a little bit over 100,000 in just 2 months. In fact, in the first 2 weeks, it had lost almost half its players despite being the most talked about and streamed game. Arc Raiders and Black Ops 7 still hadn't released, and every big streamer was streaming and praising the game. So how did the biggest success in the series turn into the biggest flop when the marketing had worked? The answer is simple. Identity crisis. DICE fell into the classic corporate trap of trying to make a game for everyone. They wanted the Call of Duty players, they wanted the Milsim players, and they wanted the battle dads who play on their 70-inch TVs. And in the end, they made a game for absolutely no one. Here's the reality of the gameplay loop. It is far too slow for a Call of Duty refugee, but at the same time it is too arcadey for a strategy-focused Milsim player. The game design is in a constant tug-of-war between the two polar opposites. On one hand, it gives you sliding, which the casuals absolutely hate, but along with the sliding, they give you a massive inaccuracy penalties that turn away the people who actually want to use the mechanic. The movement system is designed to handcuff you. Yet we still see countless posts about people wanting to nerf movement even further, and the gunplay isn't any better either. It's the classic random bullet spread nonsense that is designed to protect new players instead of forcing them to get good like they did in Battlefield 5. The good players are leaving because there's no skill progression, there's nothing to practice for. Letting go of your fire button every 2 seconds isn't skill or recoil control, it's a rhythm check. And the worst part? The battle dads, the people DICE is desperately trying to protect with this low skill mechanics, they still hate it. Despite being one of the slowest battlefields in the franchise, despite the constant nerfs catering to their cries, they still go on the forums and call it a COD clone, just because the game has a slide button and smaller maps. You alienated your core skilled audience to please a casual audience that you can never satisfy. If you want a product that lasts, you must allow for skill gaps to exist. It's why I can still jump into Battlefield 4 or Battlefield 5 today and have fun. There's always something to improve upon. Why is Counter-Strike still the king of FPS after 2 decades? Competitiveness. Casuals leave regardless of what you do. They move on to the next shiny toy. But the skill players? They wanna stay, but they will always leave when a game stops respecting their time and skill. But even if you fix the movement and gunplay tomorrow, you're still left with one huge problem. The maps. They lack soul, and the layout is so bad that the flow is basically non-existent. In a franchise known for massive scale, chaotic warfare with infantry and vehicle combat, it is embarrassing to only have the small maps be playable. The big open maps are just open fields with zero cover. And the vehicle mains, the people who usually thrive in these environments, hate it. They say piloting feels floaty and disconnected. But for infantry it's even worse, it's a death sentence. It is almost impossible to move from point A to point B without getting vaporized if you're not using a vehicle. Compare this to Hamada in Battlefield 5 for example. That was a massive vehicle-focused map, but the difference is night and day. Hamada has verticality, it has ridges, it has ruins and lanes. I can run across the entire map as an infantry while dodging tanks and weaving through cover and actually impacting the fight. In Battlefield 6, however, you're just a fish in a barrel. Another horrible design that further exacerbates how awful the maps are snipers. It is undoubtedly the easiest, most boring sniping experience in the history of the franchise. There is barely any bullet drop, the velocity is almost instant, you barely have to lead your target. But then they added the rangefinder keybind, which is essentially a built-in cheat code, and you also have the lethal headshots perk that prevents reviving. I don't know what they were thinking. It just breaks the fundamental loop of Battlefield. It turns the game into a point-and-click adventure for the people who are too scared to move. And then we have Redsec, their secret weapon, the Warzone killer. It is arguably the worst Battle Royale experience to date. It tries so hard to copy Warzone's pacing, but with movement and gunplay so bad that it feels like you're playing a game from 2010. And to make matters worse, they kept the vehicles. Nothing screams competitive integrity like looting for 15 minutes just to get wiped by a guy sitting in a tank who hasn't pressed a movement key in half an hour. It's tragic because Firestorm, their previous attempt of Battle Royale in Battlefield 5, was actually pretty decent. Yeah, the looting system was awful, and locking it behind a paywall was very dumb, but the game was built upon the bones of Battlefield 5, the game with the best gunplay and best movement in the series. If they had fixed the looting and removed the tanks, it would genuinely have been a good BR, and the only one that could challenge PUBG in that slower and more tactical pacing. Redsec, on the other hand, feels like a mobile game port by comparison. The Warzone from TeamU. The lesson here is one that developers keep ignoring. You have to pick a lane. You cannot be a milsim and an arcade shooter. You cannot be a tactical BR and a vehicle sandbox. When you try to be everything, you end up being nothing. Battlefield 6 is a shell of what the franchise used to be. It has the brand name but none of the DNA. It alienated the veterans by removing the skill gap, and it also alienated the casuals by not having good big maps and by making vehicles clunky. That's why Arc Raiders not only built upon its immense early success, but has also kept most of its player base engaged, because underneath all of the hype there was a good game. A game with a strong direction, and a game that knew its targeted audience and tried to give them the perfect curated gameplay. I know the casuals are gonna hate me for it, but Battlefield needs to have skill expression. I'm not saying that we need omni movement and wall jumping like Call of Duty, but we should have sliding and jumping like in Battlefield 5. We need to stop penalizing accuracy for every action. It adds a layer of complexity, and despite not being the most realistic or authentic looking, it still looks far more pleasing to the eye than the bunny hopping in Battlefield 4. Gunplay, without a doubt, has to go the route of recoil. Battlefield 5 didn't have the best gunplay to have existed in a video game, but it was still light years ahead of any previous or future Battlefield release. That's what the future must be built upon, and like I mentioned earlier, all of that would be wasted unless the maps are well crafted too. You can have the best gunplay and the best movement in the world, but it wouldn't have mattered if you can't enjoy it because the maps are ass cheeks. If you're frustrated with how disappointing Battlefield 6 turned out to be, and aren't put off by the faster paced gameplay, I strongly recommend giving Black Ops 7 a try. I know it doesn't play like a Battlefield game, but neither does Battlefield 6, and unlike Battlefield 6, it feels snappy and fun. The maps have great flow, and despite being a casual run and gun shooter, it does a really good job at introducing skill gaps. If you want to find out more about the game, watch my previous video. I break down exactly why this particular installment brought me back to Call of Duty after a decade-long hiatus. And if Call of Duty is absolutely not your style, then give Battlefield 5 a go. I'll see you on the next one, and if you like this video, I hope you like and subscribe. Peace.